live on YouTube, and going live on Instagram. And live on Instagram. Why an eating disorder is not a separate entity, and how believing this and continuing to perpetuate this idea can create suffering for you and also make it difficult to have, hi Anne, waving at you, why it can make it difficult to recover, and why it can also cause more relapse. So just briefly, this idea that an eating disorder is a separate entity is something that I'm noticing is coming out of treatment centers. And again, I don't have the full history on this. I need to do more research myself. The reason I have this perspective at this point is because I work in a treatment center. Hi, Valerie. Waving at you. And the reason I have this perspective is I work at a treatment center and I see it perpetuated a lot there. And then also the peers that come to work with me, some of them have been in treatment centers in and out even a few times, and they will talk about their experiences of being told that's just ed in your head, the ed in your head, or that's what your eating disorder is telling you. And the thing is that when people have told me this, they have said it with frustration. There was something about that rubbed them the wrong way. And that's why I would like to speak on it now. Now, the reason that I think it's so important is because when you are speaking about an eating disorder as something that is totally separate and has taken you over, I used the metaphor last time of a supply chain, where it's like instead of going directly to the source, we're having all these middle people in between. And we can also use the metaphor of an exorcism, as in like you've been possessed by something and now you need an exorcism to get it out of you. Now, a couple things cause that to be problematic. If we take the exorcism example, the way that is problematic is because it's as if just something came out of nowhere, came in, possessed you, and now there's just nothing you can do but to go to some expert who is the provider that's going to then get it out of you and tell you what to do, because up until this point, you just don't know how to make choices for yourself. The eating disorder has totally taken you over, and everything that you do is problematic, but other than the eating disorder, everything else is just going swimmingly in your life. And when that happens, it creates this imbalance of power where the provider is the one that knows everything, and then you are just there to get all the good advice that you don't have access to within yourself. Now, I'm also not saying, when I say that eating disorder is not a separate entity, that the eating disorder is you. I am not saying that at all. Here's what I am saying. When we are talking about an eating disorder as a separate entity, it is no different than any thought that comes through your head. So if we say, oh, that's an eating disorder thought, don't listen to it or tell it to F off or whatever, push it away. That practice is no different than if we're doing that with every single thought. Here's what I mean by that. I've heard people say, well, my thoughts are my thoughts, but these thoughts are the eating disorder's thoughts. And that's where it can get problematic, because we're not willing to actually look at thoughts in general. Are thoughts actually your thoughts? How do we separate what thoughts are your thoughts? What thoughts are eating disorders thoughts? What thoughts are your parents' thoughts? What thoughts are society's thoughts? So on and so forth. So if we're going to look at an eating disorder as a separate entity, as eating disorder thoughts as separate entities, we also have to look at actually thoughts as separate entities, coming and going. Maybe staying a little longer than we want them to, and especially if we're in our head to protect ourselves from being in our body. If we struggle with being in our body, we will also have a trouble to let go of thoughts and let them come and go. Now, I have some notes here. I got my notepad because this can get a little complicated. But let's go back to this idea where peers have told me that they've been in treatment, they've been in inpatient, they've been in residential treatment centers, and it's pushed this idea that that's your eating disorder. That's your eating disorder. One way that causes suffering is because it is not giving credit to the you, whenever it was that chose to rely on disordered eating to keep yourself safe. So in a way, it's saying like, push that away, don't listen to it, tell it to F off. Well, who are you actually pushing away and telling to F off? The you that has chosen that to keep yourself safe. And that is what Pema Chodron would call a subtle aggression against yourself. So in a way, it's actually perpetuating a society that says, you don't know what's best for you, but we do. And buy our product or do this thing and make yourself smaller and don't speak and don't tell us what your needs are. And something is wrong with you for having needs. You're perpetuating that by saying, F you eating disorder voice. I'm going to do, I don't know, a skill like opposite action or something like that. So it's not actually allowing for the fullness of your experience, noticing it, letting it be there, and not getting caught up in the thoughts. As soon as you're going, eating disorder thought, F you, or whatever, you are now wrapped up and tangled and engaging with the thought, which takes you out of the present moment and out of your physical body. Well, where does your wisdom and connection with the present moment come from? Being in your physical body. That's your access to the present moment, to the wisdom coming to you from the universe. You access that through your physical body. Even if it's coming through as thoughts, you access that through your physical body. So when you are up in your head, arguing with eating disorder, or ED, as they call it, that has taken you out of the present moment. And so that's important. And also, if we are thinking that eating disorder thoughts are the thoughts that we need to get rid of, but everything else we can, we can choose what we want to keep and what we don't want to keep. We're engaging in something that is conditional. You've maybe heard of the term unconditional love or conditional love. Well, that's what we're doing when we're saying these thoughts are not welcome, but these thoughts are. And that will never create a sustainable, lasting change, and will often lead to suffering because we're doing things based on condition rather than unconditional love, acceptance, and space. So if a thought comes in and it is an eating disorder thought, such as, I just ate all this food. Tomorrow I'm gonna need to really stick to an eating plan, or I'm gonna really need to exercise and do this, that, and the other. If that thought comes in, instead of going, F you thought, or you shut up, Ed, the things that we think about, instead we will go, oh, and we would notice it. We don't get tangled up in it. We don't argue with it. We don't denigrate it or celebrate it. It's not either or. It's not engaging in the binary that society often pushes on us. It is going, okay, I see you. I recognize you. And I'm coming back to my body. I'm coming back to the present moment. And I'm going to continue doing what is important for me. Now, often if you come back to your body when that thought comes in, because again, this is a powerful moment when you're feeling like, oh, I just ate a bunch of food and blah, 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 and I'm having these thoughts and tomorrow I'm going to restrict my food and I'm going to exercise more. Something's going on to cause you to be up in your head planning and thinking about this. Most likely there's some kind of pain going on in the body. And going up into your head, arguing with Ed or whatever is there, the entity, is actually a way of protecting you from being in your body with what is going on. So instead of doing that, you can have the opportunity to notice that here's the thought, I got to do this, I got to do that. Also notice the doing. This is important too. And instead of engaging with that, you're just acknowledging its presence. I see you, thank you, and coming back to your body and what you are doing or being with in the present moment. So there may be shame in the present moment that's present in your body. There could be sadness, there could be aloneness, there could be anger. Maybe there's even joy. Even sometimes we don't know how to just be with joy. But whatever it is, it's not necessarily important what it is. It's just the practice of noticing that fighting with Ed and arguing with a separate entity that is an eating disorder is actually a way of trying to keep yourself safe from being in your body. And it is also a way of, shoot, I forgot. I lost my train of thought there. So, one, thoughts. All we're talking about is thoughts here. And really, are any thoughts our own thoughts? Thoughts come to us from years of living. So you may even recognize that some of your thoughts are society's thoughts. Some of your thoughts are thoughts from growing up, from teachers, from family members. And so to even consider that thoughts are belonging to us is also powerful, because when we can recognize that thoughts are just a less dense physical form moving through us, then we can actually have less attachment to them and need to hang on to them for our as a way to keep ourselves safe. All right. Now what to do with this? So I talked about the struggle, but let's talk about what to do with it. The important part and how to cause yourself or to free yourself from an eating disorder and to liberate yourself from the suffering that this can cause is to tune in. Okay? Noticing that you may say something such as, "Oh, I did that because of my eating disorder." Or you may say something like, "My eating disorder wants me to." So anytime you notice that this talk is going on, that's okay. This is not about denigrating yourself. This is about liberation and creating space. So when you notice that that is happening, or even if you notice that someone's asking you, well, what does your eating disorder want? You can ask the question of, if my eating disorder gets what it wants, what does that do for me? Or if my eating disorder doesn't get what it wants, if Ed doesn't get what Ed wants, what does that do for me? And what that's doing is it's bringing you back to yourself, back to your body. Now, you can get really heady with this and you can start overthinking. I want to invite you to come back to your body and notice what's going on in there. You will still get thoughts, and thoughts can still be helpful. However, being stuck with arguing or fixating on thoughts and not letting them flow or having to hang on to them is when we cause ourselves suffering. So, again, the way to liberate yourself from this protection, which is, oh, that's Ed in your head, or oh, that's your eating disorder talking, is to do a self inquiry. What am I gaining, losing? What is happening when the eating disorder is getting what it wants or is not getting what it wants? And that's going to start to get you back to what's going on. You may find that when the eating disorder is getting what it wants, I'm feeling relief. So if I take myself, when I had an eating disorder, when the eating disorder was getting what it wants, I didn't have to feel the shame that I felt of being the person that I was. It was protecting me, and it did such a good job. And when we just say, F you eating disorder, get the F out of here, we are ignoring what it actually did, and that we actually chose it for that reason. Not to blame ourselves. No, no, no. This is actually a celebration of ourselves and honoring ourselves, honoring our wisdom, to use the resources we had to protect ourselves, keep ourselves safe, and be able to continue functioning and thriving. Now, could be something different for you when you are believing that this eating disorder is a separate thing and it's taking you over, and that it's making you do these things that you don't want to do. What is that protecting you from? This starts to get that inquiry back to yourself. And the reason this is important is because liberation comes from a deeper connection with yourself and making more and more space for yourself to be as you are. So when you just say F you eating disorder, you're tightening. You're not making space. You're making less space. And so the you that is you, the radiance, the brilliance, the perfection that is already you, it is restricted. It can't come out. There's no room to move. However, when you notice, oh, I am thinking that The eating disorder is wanting me to do stuff. That's an opportunity to create more space so that the you that is you can flourish and come out. And the eating disorder that you are using for protection does not, it starts to lose some of its grip and some of its appeal to you as a form of protection. I feel like this was a little convoluted. Let me see if there's anything else that I think is important about this. Just to reiterate, an eating disorder is not you. So I'm not saying that an eating disorder is you. What I am saying is that saying that an eating disorder is a separate entity is no different than anything else that comes through you. It's no different than thoughts. Thoughts are also moving through, just like some eating disorder thoughts are. And the other thing is, this is important. Harm reduction. This is really important. If this is a skill or a practice that keeps you safe when you feel like you do not have any other options, then please keep doing it. That's important here. Harm reduction is important if it is like keeping you safe, keeping you alive. You will start to let go of an eating disorder when it is safe for you to do so. And that happens in your own process, in your own time. You don't control that. So if right now this is the only thing that you have, and you have to hold on to this idea that an eating disorder is making you do this or making you do that, and if you say F you to the eating disorder, that's actually helpful for you in the moment, then by all means do it. What I invite is an inquiry and an awareness of the situation and what is happening, and a continued progression back home to yourself. So none of this is bad. None of this is a should or a shouldn't. It's opening space, building awareness, noticing what is going on, coming back to your body. That is recovery. That is the recovery process. As I heard one person say, trauma is the inability to be present. Now, recovery, there's a SAMHSA and a peer counseling definition, which I'm not going to say right now, but I'm going to say recovery is the ability to be present. And actually, I'm going to even shorten it. The ability to be. And so that's what we'll end with today. And I'll see you next time on the live. I think one person is here. Let me know if you have any questions right now, and I'm happy to answer anything. And I'm going to repost this video so you can watch it anytime. And it's on YouTube. It's on Instagram. Sometimes I like to just watch videos on YouTube on my laptop. So if you prefer to do that, then know that that's an option. It's on my YouTube channel at Compassionate Peer Counseling. And that's it. I enjoyed the time. See you next time.